G'day everyone, welcome back to another video on True Eagle. Today we are going to discuss some of the off-field stuff, list management stuff for the West Coast Eagles at the end of the 2024 season. Now, why am I making a video like this now? The primary answer is I had multiple comments asking for a video of this nature, looking at what we can do from a recruitment point of view to try and improve this list at the end of the year. Yes, it's early. There's so much water to go under the bridge, so I'm going to keep this fairly breezy in terms of how in-depth I go with this analysis, but essentially what we're talking about here is, a general landscape of what's out there, which players are out of contract, which players I think are good fits for us, what picks do we have, how much list space do we have, even that's going to be a little bit hard to project, and just a general look at what's out there and what I think was right for us. Yeah, it's round two. I'm giving up the season, of course. I mean, the thing is, when you go for a rebuilding side that's anchored to, at least the bottom two. I'd like to think we can avoid the spoon, but we're probably not going to finish much higher than that. And even if we do, whichever way you slice it, we're a rebuilding side. And therefore, of course, to help get us through this period of suffering, it is both fun and soothing and helpful to look at things that we can proactively do to improve the list going forward. So I'm just going to give you a bit of a snapshot as to what I think is out there. By the way, finally got monetized on this channel. Thank you so much for the support. I really, really do appreciate it. It's been a resounding success so far, True Eagle. I'm really happy I made this decision. Really like interacting with you guys as well. And if there's anyone who's watching, just discovered the channel, it would mean a lot to me if you subscribe to it. Cool. So like I said, I'm going to be fairly shallow with how in-depth some of these discussions get, but we're going to talk about where we're starting from. So as it currently stands, we hold picks 1, 21, 57, and 75. So that's on the basis that we finish in the current position we're in, which is 18th on the ladder. I like to think we can improve by one spot, but either way, that's ballpark. The most notable thing that's different there is, first of all, pick 21 is the start of the second round. There's a couple of things to consider, like North Melbourne's two priority picks that are at Sydney and Gold Coast, if I'm not mistaken. So we enter the second round after them. We also don't have a third rounder because if you were paying attention closely last year, we traded that live to trade up to get Clay Hall. Hopefully in time that looks like a good decision, but that would otherwise be about pick 37. We don't have that, so we got four meaningful picks there in 1, 21, 57, 75. Also factor in the fact that 21 is probably going to balloon out to about 28, 29 again with all the academy picks. So that is worth noting. It's not a particularly strong second rounder. So our draft hand isn't great, even if we end up with pick 1. And that's important to consider now. It's too early to talk about the draft in depth right now, but it's important to know what trade collateral we have because we're going to discuss some targets that in some cases we've been linked to, in others we haven't. But we'll talk about two that we have. So there's been a lot of talk about Tim English as a potential free agent at the end of this year. There's also been some recent noise about Liam Baker from Richmond, who is not a free agent. He's only played 7 years at Richmond at the end of this year, and he would have to be a trade. So let's start with Tim English. The reasons to go from there, like what we want to be doing with our list right now is trying to get in established talent that can help our team grow without giving up draft picks. Tim English is one of the best rucks in the league. Whether or not you rate him as much as the next person, obviously there's a little bit of a divisive approach to Tim English, but either way, like who could say he doesn't improve our team? And we don't have to give up any trade collateral for him. That makes perfect sense. We also have a gaping chasm in this list of guys between the age of 24 and 28 who are any good. Like, other than Oscar Rallen, you're looking at names like Liam Duggan, Tom Cole, probably the next best, Jake Waterman, Jack Petrocelli, and then Luke Edwards is maybe. He might actually be a bit younger than that. But either way, that is, we really want our best players to be in that age bracket. And, we're top and bottom heavy. So we also got to think about, improving in the short term, but also in 2 years. There's like Cripps, McGovern, Yo, Darling, who could all probably retire. Tim Kelly would be shortly after that. So we need to make sure that we have a good group of players who are going to be 28, 27 to try and steady us through the storm when that happens. That is the logic for going for someone like a Tim English, and the same applies to Liam Baker, but there's a critical difference here between Tim English and Liam Baker. Tim English is a free agent, which means we only give up salary space. Now, we are in a position where we can offer him even more than he's necessarily worth. Now, I am not against this. There's often, discussion around like free agency moves and talk about, oh, that's a bit too much money. And maybe sometimes that applies, but with us, if you're unaware, there is a salary cap floor, which means that every club needs to pay, I think it's like 92.5% minimum of the salary cap, no matter how bad their list is. And we are going to kind of run out of players to spend that amount of money on. And we can front load contracts, which means if we get someone like a Tim English over, we can pay him way above, what he's worth necessarily in the middle 2 years of his contract. And then when we've got some other players to pay up, like potentially Harley Reid, Elijah Hewitt, these guys get extensions, then we can flex that contract back down. So really don't think we should stress about how much Tim English would cost as a free agent. Liam Baker, on the other hand, this one is awkward. Now, Liam Baker is, again, going to be 27, I think. Dual premiership player, pretty decent. Not necessarily an A-grader in my opinion, but again, you'd be crazy to think he doesn't come in and improve this team. He fits the age bracket, and to be honest, I'm a little bit concerned about if we stay as a team that's uncompetitive for too much longer, it will start to mess with development. It might also mess with retention. Like, we have probably 3 years to sell the Harley Reid. Like, this is the place you need to play, amongst others, and maybe whoever we draft with pick 1. So getting competitive quicker, there's arguments for that. The argument against Liam Baker, though, is that we have to give up something for him. Now, that's possibly fine, except what is Liam Baker worth? Well, I think probably a mid to late first round pick. So we're talking picks 12 to 16. That's probably about the ballpark for Liam Baker, in my opinion. We currently have pick 21, which becomes the late 20s pick. Before that, it's pick 1. And I can't imagine a world in which we trade pick 1 for Liam Baker. So that does make things awkward a little bit. I do like the idea of Liam Baker on our list, but we're going into this draft a little bit light with the picks that we have, in the sense that we don't have a third rounder. You probably want to take 5 or 6 picks, or at least get maybe 6 or 7 players onto the list to refresh this list as we rebuild. Obviously, we're going to have a few players to cut. Again, it's too early to narrow in on that yet, but we don't really have a lot of trade collateral to deal with here for Baker. So this is where it gets creative. There's 3 clubs with like academy or father-sons this year early. There's Gold Coast, who have Leonardo Lombard. Brisbane have Levi Ashcroft, and then Adelaide also have Tyler Welsh. And I think all 3 of them are considered first-round picks at this current stage. So they could be creative, and it's too early to get into specifics about what we can do. We also have the possibility of trading pick 1. In the same way that people said we should have done it for Harley Reid last year, we can do that again this year, and it might make sense. But the thing is, on the one hand, it is a bit more of an even draft pool, so therefore the reasons to trade down are a little bit better. That also means the value of pick 1 is a little bit lower, so it's hard to talk about that without specifics. But it is possible, say, if we're in a position to trade 1 for like 5 and 14 or something like that. Could that be better for us? 1 becomes 5, 14 goes to Richmond for Baker. I don't know if I love that, but this is us just hashing through some options. What other players are out there on the market? I'm going to tend to look at West Australian players. Cam Zurhaar is a free agent. I think he possibly could be on the move from North Melbourne. I obviously don't know. I think he's basically said he wants some success. So, us proving to Cam Zurhaar that this is a good place to come as a 26-year-old isn't going to necessarily be tempting, but he is probably the sort of player and the right age and the right quality of player that we should target. So hope we throw our hats in the ring. Now, to throw another couple of hats in the ring, first of all, there's Logan McDonald, who could be on the move from Sydney this year. Now, I really like Logan McDonald, and I think he'll be an amazing partner to Oscar Allen and, potentially Ryan Marrick as a third in that sort of operation. I think he'd be a great fit for us, but I don't know if it's likely that we're going to be in the hunt for him. I think he would be a great win for us, to be honest. I think a 22-year-old key forward at the end of this year coming into our list, I think that's perfect for us, to be honest. And I don't think, we've necessarily got that position locked down. I would think that Logan McDonald becomes a really good 1-2 punch with Oscar Allen. So I'm hopeful of that. I do think Fremantle are all over that situation, unfortunately, reading on, it's just big footy rumours and stuff like that, but I've not really heard us linked to Logan McDonald as much as Fremantle have been. But I would support a move for him. Same thing with Jed Buslinger, okay? So he was a first-round draft pick at the Western Bulldogs a couple of years ago, out of contract at the end of this year, hasn't debuted yet. Absolutely no indication there's even anyone going for him at the moment, but I will throw his name in the ring here as someone who, if we heard that he didn't sign a new contract at the Bulldogs and he was keen on coming home, I would be very happy and pleasantly surprised and keen to get him. So I think that one is important from a positional point of view, but I also think the talent's pretty good with Jed Buslinger. I don't think we are looking too strong in terms of our young key backs, and Jed Buslinger would clearly become our best key defensive prospect if we were able to lure him. So if we're in the interest of bringing in 6 to 8 players this offseason, I think that's probably about standard. That's a healthy cut without being too over dramatic. If we have 4 draft picks and a free agent. It still leaves a few spots there. So maybe one or two other kinds of players that we could get through either really cheaply, like a future third, or, delisted free agent even. I'll come up with a few. One of them is Caleb Smith from Richmond. I don't think he's debuted yet, but out of contract at the end of the year. There's Jack Carroll from Carlton. Again, I don't know how likely it is he gets delisted, but not best 22 players, likely to be cheap. Jackson Pryor, again, he's probably, he's not too bad. I think he played 5 games last year. I don't know how likely it is he gets listed, but we're just talking about relatively cheap options there. One thing I'm nervous about, though, is, again, the key back situation. I keep harping on about it, but when you consider outside the best 22, Brass and McGovern, like Brass 29, McGovern's turning 32 this year, both not great with a checkered injury past as well. Callum Jamison has been a nice, pleasant surprise, but I think he's going to take time. I like the look of Rhett Bazzo, but far from a sure thing. And Harry Edwards, again, I think he's shown like a bits, but out of contract at the end of this year, and body is made of glass. I feel like I've talked about that a lot on this channel, like our key back situation. So I wouldn't be surprised if we are one of those teams that's on the market for like a cheap key back option, like Sydney got with Joel Hamling last year. Do we try and prize out Dougal Howard from St Kilda at the end of the year? I'm just throwing that out there as something I'm half expecting because I'm really nervous about our key back situation. Now, there could be a key that could unlock a little bit of the awkward stuff here in terms of like having enough to trade for some of these players, and that's the priority pick conversation. Now, that's probably worth a video on its own. I don't want to really do that video now. We're 2 games into the season, but if we're speaking hypothetically, and if we have a season of 3 or 4 wins, again, that would be enough for a priority pick under the old system. Now it's this whole subjective thing. If we use North Melbourne as a template for what we might get, 2 things that will hold us back from getting any priority or assistance will be things like the fact that we won a premiership in 2018. We are increasingly removed from that now, though. So if we look at the last 3 seasons of 2 wins, 3 wins, and say it's 4 wins this year, for the record, under the old system, we'd have like 3 extra first round draft picks, and 2 of them would be start of first round. So I'm not obviously campaigning for that. But it would be a little bit weird to come away with absolutely no priority assistance. I mean, we're just looking for what's fair. And, a template of what North got, I think, in 2022, they got a future second and a future third that they had to trade for players. Like even something like that would be of great assistance to us. Say we get, a future pick 20 out of this deal, but we have to trade it. We could, do a 3-way trade, package 2 20s for an earlier pick, get Liam Baker. Like that would actually help. But it's not something I'm banking on. It's not even something I'm really thinking about, other than to point out the obvious reality that if we did get something to help us along with some trades and stuff like that, that would go a long way to helping us out. For the record as well, I believe that I read somewhere that part of the priority pick process they have for working out who gets a priority pick, who doesn't, to what extent. I think they threw injuries as a factor in there, so that makes me think that because we had an injury crisis for 2 years, they're going to use that as an argument against us getting anything. I don't really care, to be honest. It's too early in the season, but it was worth saying. Finish off the video with points about 2025 because things of this nature are done over time, and the 2025 free agency market at the moment has some nice talented West Australian names. So one of them is Sam Taylor. Best key back in the comp from Swan Districts originally. Absolute superstar. Absolutely, we should be throwing the checkbook at him. 100%. Enticing him is going to be another challenge. We're going to hope he really wants to come back to Perth, and I don't think Fremantle really need a key back, but they'd probably still go for him. Which is then also kind of an argument as to getting guys like English and Baker onto our list somehow. Again, I'm not saying at all costs, but somehow, because that would make it easier to entice someone like a Sam Taylor and say, hey, we're actually only 2 or 3 years away from finals and competing, and you might be the missing piece. That's the benefit of that as well. But nonetheless, I hope we try and get him. Brandon Starcevich also out of contract, free agent next year. Yeah, not sure how likely, but not the same profile as a Sam Taylor or anything like that, but someone that would be worthwhile bringing in, who is also not going to cost us anything in terms of a trade, provided we offer enough. A few other out of contract names is Chad Warner. Again, I don't know how likely it is he wants to come home. I'd imagine Freo are all over that one, but this is 2025. Absolutely, we should be in the hunt for that. Sam Powell-Pepper as well will be a free agent end of next year. Again, we have to assess, how's he going? Will he want to leave Port for West Coast? I don't know, but at the moment we're just naming names. And then a few other ones like Judd McVie, again, not super likely in my opinion. Dev Robertson will be out of contract end of next year. To be honest, I'm kind of glad we bypassed this one. I kind of felt like if Robertson comes in, he'd be best 22 for a year or two, and Reed Jinby Hewitt would probably take over Dev Robertson, so I don't know about that one. On the other hand, James Tunstall, in my opinion, looks a little bit more likely than, say, Dev Robertson in terms of AFL level talent. Sheldrick is another one that will be out of contract, so a few young WA talents worth mentioning, and that's for end of 2025. Like I said, by the end of next year, we're going to potentially have Cripps, McGovern, Darling, almost certainly retired, and Elliot Yeo would be a sneaky chance as well, because he will have been 32 that year. So we need to get some talent on the list. Obviously, there's draft picks, and I can go into so much more detail, but it's too early, and we've got a Bulldogs game to focus on. But I hope you got something out of this. Let me know in the comments if there's any different takes you have on things I said, or players that you'd want us to have a pop at. If you've got any trade rumors, that would be hot. We all love that sort of stuff. But for now, I'll thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Cheers.